Mr. Speaker, Bermuda's fortunes are dependent on the ability of the community to unite in two main efforts: the renewal of this existing economy and the design of a new paradigm of economic activity that strikes out from our traditions, creating an equitable redistribution of opportunity and wealth. Mr. Speaker, the concept of twin pillars of Bermuda's economy has become less a reality as our tax base, policy and legislative impetus, and third sector dependence have predominantly rested on international business. As a sector, they have shouldered this burden well, and Bermuda enjoys its continued high standard of living, largely due to the economic contribution generated at varying levels by international business. Tourism, Mr. Speaker, has become a mind-boggling formula of high costs, irrelevance in key markets, stops and starts in development, and an atrophy of outlook that prevents us from exploiting those things we do well. To be clear, Mr. Speaker, this does not all rest at the feet of the Bermuda Tourism Authority. I believe they have performed according to their existing capacity. Earlier this year, the Bermuda Tourism Authority noted that 2019 was the second best year in the past 13 years for leisure air arrivals, and stated that between 2015 and 2019, leisure air arrivals jumped 37%. 2019 was cited as the third consecutive year of record-breaking total visitor arrivals, a number that combines cruise, air, and yacht travelers. Mr. Speaker, those numbers were achieved against the backdrop of decreased air capacity and increased cruise arrivals. I do not propose to relitigate those numbers today. Suffice it to say, they tell a deeper story and in fact dictate much of the task that lies ahead. Mr. Speaker, it is my considered view that the Bermuda Tourism Authority as an organization is top-heavy and does not yet embrace the ethos of this government. That is to say, the creation of an equitable redistribution of opportunity so that those who have been left out or left behind by Bermuda's success, predominantly Black entrepreneurs, will receive a chance to participate on equal terms. Mr. Speaker, we must change the conversation around tourism. Bermuda is no longer the debutante at her first ball, and so the days of getting by on natural beauty alone are over. To extend the metaphor even more, Mr. Speaker, our dance card will never be filled if we don't make ourselves more attractive and more relevant. The proof of how harsh reality can be, especially when we try to ignore it, is seen in the numbers to which I referred a moment ago. Most honorable members older than me, but even I remember the mantra of Bermuda's glory days of tourism was to frown on cruise ships and their passengers, hamburger tourists, as one minister called them. Well, Mr. Speaker, having been so discerning in our past, it is fully evident of our declining relevance that our 2018 and 2019 numbers of total visitors comprise of approximately 65% of cruise visitors. As a minister responsible for tourism, I am determined that we will not be caught out by trends and changes in the market. Let me be clear, Mr. Speaker. I do not wish to run the Bermuda Tourism Authority, and I have no intention of being a micromanaging minister consumed with the operations of that organization. However, my responsibility is to set policy and to oversee its execution to the benefit of people of Bermuda, and that is what I intend to do. Mr. Speaker, a regrettable feature of life in Bermuda is the need for third-party validation of things which, even though they are clear as day, especially when stated by a member of this government. Therefore, lest honorable members consider that the comments that I make today are some nuanced spin or the work of high-priced consultants, in June 2011, almost a decade ago, John Crellin, the former general manager of the Fairmont Hamilton Princess, told the Royal Gazette this as he ended his tenure. And I quote, "Why do we always hear about Bermuda's heyday? It's been gone and things have moved on. That was about 25 or 30 years ago. This is now, and things are different, very different. Back then, we weren't surrounded by big-name resorts. We didn't have any competition. We really need to put things back into context rather than dwelling on the past. We need to do our research to see who our competition really is. It doesn't matter what we think, it's what tourists think. Something needs to change to take Bermuda to the next level. We need to be put back on the map. Bermuda needs to do something sooner rather than later." Mr. Speaker, that later is upon us. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of key issues that must be tackled, and I'm pleased to set those out in summary for the benefit of honorable members. The first is relevance. Mr. Speaker, honorable members will recall the National Tourism Plan launched under the auspices of the former Minister of Tourism and Economic Development, the honorable member for Constituency 33, Jamal Simmons. That plan features a section titled Awareness and Relevance, and it says, "We must focus our resources to make the right decisions, to make the right audiences more familiar with Bermuda and break through the noise of other destinations," end quote. And later in that section, it goes on to say, "If there are no distinguishing factors differentiating Bermuda, few people will choose her, and those that consider coming will view Bermuda as being very expensive," end quote. In these statements, Mr. Speaker, we find the defining issue behind our tourism challenge over the last 2 decades. Mr. Speaker, the fact that this is a national tourism plan means that the BTA is fully cognizant of this challenge, and that is a good thing. Beyond recognizing the issue, the BTA must cease looking inward in a very micro sense and advance a policy of engagement at the macro level that makes Bermuda an almost mandatory experience in our key markets. Mr. Speaker, to address the issue of inconsistent air arrivals, seasonality, and our high price point, we must connect to our key markets beyond the level of a vacation destination. We have fine events in Bermuda, but nothing that ranks as a must-attend for the demographic we claim to want as our guests. As an example, Mr. Speaker, people will not leave New York for restaurant weeks in Bermuda. We must offer something more compelling that differentiates us and makes our island relevant. Number 2, air service development. Mr. Speaker, with my colleague, the Honorable Member for Constituency number 26, the Minister of Transport, Neville Tyrrell, I intend to commit significant resources to further development of air service for Bermuda. I have received a detailed analysis done during the tenure of the former Minister of Tourism and Transport, the Honorable Member for Constituency 29, Zayn Da Silva, and I can advise honorable members of this honorable chamber that there is now a joined-up approach to air service development that will form the foundation of critical next steps in growing airlift from key markets to Bermuda. Number 3, film, arts, fashion, and entertainment. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda continues to have a reputation for staid, boring, and uninspiring. This issue is more than any real or perceived lack of nightlife or options after 10 p.m. There is a deeper core to this product discussion that must be addressed. Mr. Speaker, even the very best marketing will struggle in the long term to overcome the competitive headwinds that we face. This increased competition, paired with our high price point, means that we must evolve beyond the singular narrative of the idyllic island paradise. Mr. Speaker, we have spent hundreds of millions on marketing, staffed foreign offices, and are home to some of the world's top insurers, reinsurers, and global brands like Bacardi. How then can we be so unknown and essentially irrelevant to the very market from which those successes emanate. Striking out into film, arts, fashion, and entertainment in targeted, meaningful ways that mirror the expectations created by our price point must be the next wave of effort in promoting Bermuda. Every day, we are treated to a success story in the local news of Bermudians who have achieved name recognition and success in these areas outside of Bermuda, but have no real, and I say real, home film festival, no real haven for the arts, no fully supported fashion week to match their talents. Mr. Speaker, people want to feel a buzz where they live and a sense that things are happening. Bermudians need to feel pride in their tourism and will do so when we provide them a product to brag about again. Mr. Speaker, natural beauty is not enough to get us by in 2020. Mr. Speaker, I will share with honorable members a useful illustration. A renowned European film festival has a $20 million budget, 10 to 12 million which comes from the country's government. This annual event connects this European city to Hollywood and is a must-attend event for all and sundry connected to the industry and has provided this city with a thriving art scene of which this event is the pinnacle. Yes, Mr. Speaker, $10 million is a significant spend on one event, and I'm not proposing we do so. But when we consider that Bermuda has been spending that annually on billboards, pink taxis, and TV ads with little to no return on goals first set out almost 20 years ago, investments into arts, fashion, and entertainment combined with celebrity to raise Bermuda's relevance must be seen as a long-term investment worth making. Mr. Speaker, we've tried fishing where the fish are. They aren't biting because they don't like our bait. It's time to make real investments to fix our product and recognize that just like we cannot take pink sand from the beach, selling pink sand will not get us where we need to be. Our approach must be different, leveraging celebrity to attract private sector sponsors to share the investment and assist in building their brands while we make our brand more relevant in key markets. Mr. Speaker, there is one trite aspect of tourism policy that applies from Hamilton, New Zealand, to Hamilton, Bermuda. Tourism works best for all of us when air arrivals are up and hotels are full. I am determined to build on the work done by the ministers of this government to see more Bermudians working in tourism, earning salaries that allow them to meet their families' needs and establish themselves as citizens in their country whose careers and contributions drive this economy too. Speaker, in regards to economic development, it seems an eternity ago, but in his statement in support of the estimates of revenue and expenditure, the honorable member, the Minister of Finance, relied upon the words of an African proverb, and I quote, "If you wish to move mountains tomorrow, you must start by lifting stones today," end quote. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to advise this Honorable House that the efforts of this government in economic development continue to build that foundation for transformational change we promise for Bermuda. It is essential that Bermuda's economy builds on what we have while laying the legislative underpinning to advance the growth of existing and new sectors in our economy. It is often forgotten that our job in this Honorable House, when it comes to economic development, is to create the legislative underpinning that our vibrant private sector can market internationally to attract business to Bermuda. It is what worked in financial services, and it is what will work in other sectors targeted for growth. Honorable members will have noted recent policy changes that promote the development of Bermuda's economy. This can be seen through the swift changes to the residential certificate policy outlined by my colleague, the member for constituency number 17, the Minister of Labor, Jason Hayward. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, I wish to advise honorable members of the following items under economic development. Honorable members will take under consideration today amendments to Bermuda's trust legislation which will dramatically increase Bermuda's marketability by modernizing statutes. Led by the Bermuda Business Development Agency, marketing efforts, policy, and legislative changes are being advanced as part of a targeted Asia and Hong Kong strategy. The Cabinet Office, in conjunction with the Ministry of Finance, Bermuda Business Development Agency, and the Bermuda Monetary Authority, is crafting stand-alone family office legislation to differentiate Bermuda's offering in this competitive global space. To support the Ministry of Finance and the Registrar of Companies, the Bermuda Business Development Agency is setting out a clear strategy around marketing our economic substance regime that will see these changes for companies accrue to the benefit of Bermuda in the form of more jobs. Our fintech strategy continues to yield new company formations, with more companies applying to be licensed under Bermuda's framework. The Business Development Agency, in conjunction with Bermuda Monetary Authority, will be advancing changes to the digital asset framework for this Honorable House's consideration in September. The regulatory authority is advancing the necessary fee structure that will allow us to bring into force the legislation to promote subsea cables for Bermuda. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation is finalizing guidelines for approved residential schemes in the economic empowerment zones to attract Bermuda-based investment, creating construction jobs while maintaining the rich cultural history of these areas. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I believe it is important to underline a key difference in policy between this government and members opposite. The almost throwaway line of the opposition is the need for, and I quote, more foreign investment. But, Mr. Speaker, foreign investment which does not see the profits benefit the people or the community in which it is invested is yesterday's model. The economy of today and the future will not be the one with which the members opposite are so familiar and so comfortable. The economy we are determined to build is one that creates a country of Bermudian owners and Bermudian investors, ordinary women and men who can put their disposable income or hard-earned savings to work, investing in projects and initiatives that benefit the community and generate a return for them as investors and intergenerational wealth for their children. Mr. Speaker, time after time we hear the call for more foreign investment, but the unspoken part of that call is that it signals no change to the status quo or ranking of Bermudians in their own country. The members opposite specialize in short-term outbursts of economic activity that generate enough for today, but no long-term hope for tomorrow. Lurching from a boat race to billionaires to building a vanity airport terminal is not an economic record of which to be proud. Neither provided the lasting impact Bermudians need to transform their personal economic fortunes, and both left us with debts for many years to come. There is a shocking irony in the criticism from the government, because we are not following their model of crafting schemes to make the rich richer while denying Bermudians the wealth creation opportunity these investments should bring. Mr. Speaker, this government's economic paradigm will welcome foreign investment, but it must be paired and matched with Bermudian investment so that our children do not see profits sucked from their shores and wonder why their forefathers sold them out. Mr. Speaker, we are designing a new paradigm of economic activity that strikes out from our traditions, creating an equitable redistribution of opportunity and ensuring that Bermudians have an opportunity to participate so they can be owners in their own country, building wealth for future generations to inherit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.